All right, hi everyone. We're on to the new chapter now. So this is Unit 4 still, and I think this is about the third chapter into it. This is Chapter 13, Employment and Unemployment. This one's a very simple chapter, and there's very little in it. We'll probably get this done in two sessions, two video sessions, and you'll probably be back at school at that stage by the time we finish. Well, when it's on Monday week. Anyway, we'll tip on. This one's quite short. And there's nothing really in it. There's nothing complicated in it. It's a little bit of theory, and it's kind of common sense really. And I'm pretty sure if I gave you a question on this now, you'd probably do a pretty good job in getting a good mark on it. So employment and unemployment. What is it? What's it about? How do we calculate it? What are the consequences of high unemployment? What are the benefits of low unemployment? Etc. And different types of things. So we'll go through it. I said 15 minutes, and we'll get a little bit done here. Okay. So first thing to know is why is this important? This There's a couple of things that will keep the Minister for Finance, Pascal Donoghue, awake at night. And there's like 3 or 4 metrics that's really important to know. What's the inflation rate in Ireland? What's the interest rate in Ireland? What's the unemployment rate in Ireland? What's the unemployment rate in Ireland? What's the balance of trade, balance of payments? So there's a few things now that have such an important consequence to our economy that these things are recorded and treated very seriously by government bodies. Because employment, the amount of people working in this country, dictates everything. If there's loads of people working, it's a good sign. If there's loads of people not working in this country, it's devastating. And it doesn't matter what your political ideology is, your type of economic systems. If you're in a recession and there's people out of work, it's a bad thing. There's no way of sugarcoating it at all. So what does the government want? Governments want people working. And why do they want people working? Well, again, let's just think back to our old circle of economics, of economic growth. What happens when people are working? They work, they pay taxes, they buy stuff. When they buy stuff, they create employment elsewhere. Government gets money, government gets more taxes, can invest, etc., etc., etc. So it's this whole circular flow of money through an economy, which we looked at a couple of months ago. So this is obvious, this stuff, but again, let's just go through it. Higher tax take, more money for the government. Less government spending on social welfare programs. So again, someone who gets a job who was unemployed has two benefits. Number one, they pay taxes and they also don't claim social welfare. So it's got a double impact. If that makes sense. It's got a double impact. Someone getting 200 quid a week, that's 10 grand a year. Someone who's now working getting 40 grand a year, that's now 40 grand a year. They'd be paying about 10 grand in tax. So someone getting a job is like a 20 grand swing per person. So if one person gets a job, now saves the government 20 grand or has a 20 grand swing, you can see why it's so important that the government want loads of people working. For individuals, keeping us happy, keeping up our standard of living, keep us getting skilled, experienced, and qualified, so we can earn more and demand more. And obviously, that demand leads to different things. This highly skilled and qualified pool of employment that we have is how we attract foreign direct investment, which we spoke about in a different chapter. When you go to Silicon Valley during St. Patrick's Day and say, hey, come to Ireland and work in Ireland, the question that Facebook and Google and LinkedIn are going to have is, why would we come here? Do you have enough skilled people to work in Ireland in our offices? And pretty much the answer is yes. As we said previous to this, there is a lot of people from international backgrounds working in these offices because we do have a kind of a skills shortage. And one of our main skills shortages that we have in this country is languages. We are not very good at modern European languages. There is not a lot of people who study modern European languages in third level. A lot of them who do it just become teachers of modern European languages. So there is a lot of individuals working in these offices from an international background. So that's the one thing that we really kind of need to work on, and that's the one program that the government are trying to get. Okay, what else is just to create a culture of can do. You can do this. You can create employment, creating a culture of entrepreneurship, creating a culture of success so that more people are willing to give it a chance. If there's a recession, is this the time now to polish off that old business plan that was sitting in your attic and maybe give it a go? And that can happen if there's support available then from from government agencies, local enterprise offices, etc. Okay. So, easy stuff. What is full employment? What is unemployment? Full employment is rare. It's very rare, but it did happen in Ireland a few years ago. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Full employment is essentially where anyone who wants to work can work. Anyone who wants to get a job can get a job. Everyone seeking work can get work. This is generally during a boom. This is during a sustained boom where there's jobs everywhere. I'll talk about that in a second because I want to show you some graphs looking at this. And it is very rare, but it does happen, and it happened in Ireland not so long ago as well. Then the other thing to look at is unemployment. What is unemployment? Unemployment is generally people who are unable to find work. It means people who are looking for work but are unable to find work. Now, you will remember, it doesn't say it in this book, but this is the obvious stuff. You'll remember this from Junior Cert Business Studies, that this does not include students, nor does it include retired people, nor does it include people who are unable to work because of perhaps a disability. So there's unemployment, and then there's the labor force. And we'll talk about that later on. So unemployment is if you are unable to find work, active looking. None of ye are unemployed. If you're in full-time education, even if you're in full-time education in college, you're not technically unemployed. You might be able to get a part-time job, but you're not unemployed, technically. So there's different types of unemployment. Frictional unemployment, which happens when if there's a change in a particular market. So you're between jobs. So for instance, you quit a job, you might go back to college, you might be looking for a job then, or something closes down, a factory closes down, and you're still looking for work. So it just kind of means between jobs. And all of you in your careers will be between jobs. Most of you will probably claim the dole at one stage or the other. Nothing to be ashamed of. I've claimed the dole when I was between jobs. Then you have seasonal unemployment. Seasonal unemployment is there are certain jobs that are seasonal. So tourism is seasonal. In the summer, there's loads of tourist jobs. In the spring, there's loads of jobs in in autumn, for instance, there are lots of jobs in harvesting, so fruit picking, etc. So it's a seasonal thing. In Christmas, a lot of you will get jobs in supermarkets during Christmas because there's big times of the year. So that's just seasonal stuff. And there's cyclical unemployment, and this just happens when there's an economic recession and people are just let go. So a restaurant closes during a recession. It'll probably reopen, and it could reopen, but they just have to let people go. A factory letting people go, maybe on a temporary basis. So during COVID, actually, this is perfect. Cyclical unemployment is COVID. Hundreds of thousands of people have been let go due to COVID, but they'll come back up. So this is generally a temporary thing. Structural, it's when things completely change. So, for instance, people who have skills that were useful then and not skills that are useful now. So, car mechanics, for instance, 20 years ago to become a car mechanic, you needed to know the ins and outs of a car engine. Whereas nowadays, you need to pretty much have a PhD in programming to do proper car servicing because of the amount of electronics in cars, the fact that we're moving to electric vehicles. So structural unemployment is people who aren't needed because the demands of their job have changed, the demands of the labour market have changed. They're not needed anymore, and unfortunately, they're forced out. Structural unemployment. And then institutional employment. Institutional employment is either cannot work because there's an obstacle in their way. It could be a disability where they physically cannot work, or there's barriers put in place by a particular place or by a particular organization to not allow them to work, or if a government puts too many barriers in the way. So, for example, very famously, those in direct provision centres, so those new immigrants to Ireland who have to go through the asylum process, are unable to work, not because they don't want to work, because the government does not allow them to work. So a lot of migrants who are awaiting asylum are institutionally unemployed. They are not allowed work, and that is also a travesty. Okay, I just want to show you a couple of things as well. The unemployment rate. I'm going to show you two different things in the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate looks at the percentage of the labour force, the percentage of people who are looking for work who are unemployed. And you can see really through the 80s and the early 90s, it was like hovering in the teens, 15, 16, 17%. And then we can see the boom. And the boom really happened around here in the late 90s when our whole economic policy changed. And also it was really the growth of the world economy. This is a boom during the world economy. And our unemployment rate fell. I left school around this time, 99, 2000. I left college around this time. Well, if I wanted a job, I could get a job. There were jobs everywhere. Like the unemployment fell in 2001 to 3.68%. That right there, that right here is full employment, total employment, where 97% of the people who wanted to get a job had a job. And the other remaining, the reason it's 3% is because you will never get full employment because of the institutional unemployment, structural unemployment. There are also people who refuse to work, but they're a minority. So there'll always be 2 or 3% of people who are unwilling or unable to work because of issues that we've just discussed. And really, you look at this boom, again, this boom really started back in kind of 98 or 97, really 98, as the job market started taking off and lasted all the way to 2007. So when I was going through all through my college years, through my 20s, there were jobs everywhere. If you wanted a job, you could get a job. If you wanted to quit a job and look for more money, you could quit a job. I quit my job about 3 times because the place next door were offering me more money. And I was literally like, cheerio, I'm out of here. Started work the next day with a place that paid 20% more. Stayed there a year and a half. Cheerio, I'm out of here. 20% extra than the place next door. This is where people were crying out for staff, couldn't get staff. There was signs in the shop windows saying, need workers. And of course, what happened here, if there's a high demand for workers and low supply, was the wages shot through the roof. I was earning more 15, what age am I now? I was earning more 15 years ago as a 23-year-old than I am now. That's insane. So wages went through the roof. So high supply of labor, or high demand of labor, low supply of labor. You can say what you want. And then, of course, we hit the crisis. And the crisis happened very quickly, shot up to 15%. Here was our recession, and then slowly it's been coming down over the last few years until, of course, what happened in 2020? Oh, nothing in particular. Our unemployment rate has remained as is. Yeah, right. I'll just show you a couple of interesting things which I found interesting. Like during the time of high employment, where a lot of people have work, a lot of companies went to interesting ways to kind of weed out the best from the CVs. Because when everyone's looking for when the employment rate is 3 or 4%, it's hard to find the right person for the job. This is something that Google put up in Silicon Valley. There was this ad that happened in Silicon Valley. It was on billboards, and you look at this and say, "What the hell is this about?" Mathematical question. You'd look at that as a highly intellectual mathematician and say, I know that answer. You went on to whatever the answer was, .com, and it led you to Google's recruitment site, and you got a job through Google. Just an interesting way of finding employment and finding the right type of person for a particular job. This is something really interesting. This has happened about, I'd say, in 2013, 2012. An individual in Ireland. This is a real billboard that came up in Dublin. Someone who was unable to find work. The unemployment rate was like 15%. This Dublin fella, anyway, couldn't do anything. Said, my only hope here is emigrate. I don't want to emigrate. So he put all his savings into this billboard here and said, save me from immigration. I want to stay here, but I'm jobless. And he put this up, and people just thought it was brilliant. He got loads of publicity on it, and he was given a job, and I think he stayed put. What the biggest problem we've had in this country, however, and we're going to pretty much finish with this for the time being, is we have what's called the brain drain. Because what do people do? What do young people do? What would you do if you're unable to get a job and you leave college and you're highly qualified and you're an engineer or you're a statistician or you're a nurse or a doctor or someone with a highly skilled qualification and the unemployment rate is too high in this country? What do? You pack your bags and you head to Oz, or you head to New Zealand, or you head to Canada, or you head to Qatar, or you head to Saudi Arabia, or you head to Dubai. And there are tens of thousands of people in their 20s, Irish people in their 20s, who've made this decision to move to Australia and New Zealand. And it's called the brain drain. And this has devastating consequences to the Irish economy, because these are the highly skilled young professionals who just leave these shores because they don't feel they're getting the support from the government. And the government has trained these people. The government have paid for their education, and these people are leaving their shores. I've done it. You will do it. People do it. And it's a really devastating thing that can happen to not just Irish economies, but especially other developing worlds where the best and the brightest decide to leave for better places and better opportunities abroad, and they leave their country in chaos in some situations, and that's not being over dramatic. There are certain countries do it. So that's immigration, for example, and I think I'm going to leave it at that, because the next one is looking at statistics and facts and really interesting stuff. So we'll do that next. Get up. Bye bye.